talking with Catherine and Betty Edwards. Now, you really wrote the book. Show them.
Catherine wrote by hand every foot of this book as we went along. And it's really quite a terrific contribution. Of course, we're not going to say that if she could have been known a typewriter, that it would have been easier for her. But anyway, the contribution was enormous since she could not type.
You
yes,
said things...
beautiful. Catherine is beautiful.
In the book, you did wonderful things. My father was a doctor, and a wonderfully caring doctor.
Oh, yes.
And I found, my husband was ill, that you find people are not quite so caring these days.
No, they aren't very caring at all. But of course...
And you talked about that.
But of course, being a VIP, you think would, means sort of something. It's a big, big handicap. Number one, it's an embarrassment to you after something like that happening to look the way you must look and realize that people who see you think of you as you looked on the screen. It was very, very, very embarrassing. It really is.
But didn't they try to push you out of your room?
Oh, that is, of course, heaven. a very, who was a wealthy man who gave $10 million to the York Hospital? What?
New Yorkers.
Yeah, New Yorkers gave $10 million to the New York Hospital for the complete security of 2 hospital rooms he could use at any time. Well, I was in one of them. Mrs. Nixon was across the hall in another one. My great surgeon friend, Stanley Behrman, was a great friend of New Yorkers. And a nephew or somebody had hurt himself very badly in Italy, and he called up Stanley Behrman. And the doctors kept saying, oh, you can go home today. You can go home today. Well, frankly, one does know oneself when one is well enough to go home. And Nayaka said to Stanley, when are you going to get that goddamn actress friend of yours out of that room? I didn't find this out till later, as a matter of fact. I was very puzzled that maybe I hadn't paid my bill. With the way they were trying to get rid of me, I thought, this is very odd. I mustn't go till I feel like it. But that was why they were doing it.
Did you get a chance to meet Mrs. Nixon? Did you go across and say hello?
Mr. Nixon we saw in the hall, that Catherine did. I think you went and talked to him, didn't you?
Yes.
And I had very many flowers, and I sent some flowers over to Mrs. Nixon. And they were returned by a security guard next day saying, Mrs. Nixon is allergic to flowers. And I decided that probably Mr. Nixon, when he saw the name and knew what a wild Democrat I was, that he wasn't so pleased to have my flowers in. But then a nurse one day came into my room, right, and said, good morning, Mrs. Nixon. I said, Mrs. Nixon is across the hall.
May I ask you, you played so many different roles, and this is probably a very stupid and very basic question. Is there any one role that you just look back and go, that was my favorite?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course, Doc Victory was a favorite. Doc Victory, now Voyager was certainly a favorite. But you see, I was so lucky. I was given so very, very many. They bought wonderful things for me to do. In later years, of course, what can we say enough about All About Eve? We can't. We just can't.
It reads so brilliantly, too.
But my favorite of sort of later years, of course, was Baby Jane.
Yeah.
I will never forget a remark made by my daughter, Barbara, when she saw me in makeup. She said, Mother, now you have just gone too far.
Melissa says that every morning. Will you come? Will you come back again, please, and visit? We'll be right back with Joe Bologna at the Special Olympics. And I know you have to leave, so thank you so much. Betty Davis.